there are reports out there from Tom Pelissero that Jon Gruden is being eyed by multiple teams across the NFL. Welcome into States Now by Chat Sports. As always, Trace Girouard. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's program. No matter where you are or how you're watching, we always appreciate the Who Dat Nation for making us a part of their day. Now, really quick, I want to ask you this question before we dive into today's program. Do you want Jon Gruden to be the next head coach for the New Orleans Saints? Just give me a Y for yes and N for no down in the comments section. I'm going to be replying to what you guys think, so I'm eager to hear your thoughts. Saints fans, let me know. Should Chucky be the next head honcho? Now, Tom Pelissero, the report officially was this. We saw him working with the Saints back in training camp last year. My understanding is if he had wanted the Saints offensive coordinator job last year after they fired Pete Carmichael, he could have had it. He ultimately decided he was not going to do that. It's not to say for sure that Jon Gruden will be back, but there are multiple teams that have been doing extensive homework on Jon Gruden. The situation, him as a coach, him as a person, I would not be surprised at all if in the coming weeks you see Jon Gruden's name popping up, interviewing for a head coaching job. Now, I do understand that the New Orleans Saints have ties to Jon Gruden, and I am not shocked whatsoever that Jon Gruden has been linked to the New Orleans Saints, specifically by Tom Pelissero. But, just to call a spade here, just to kind of offer a little bit of clarity, sure, he could have had that job if he had wanted it. That could be the report that's coming out. But reports last year were that he never actually officially interviewed. He was never really brought in for a formal interview for the offensive coordinator job. He was brought in during training camp for the New Orleans Saints to kind of help out with Derek Carr and the transition of getting him into the New Orleans Saints offense. He also was brought in to discuss with Derek Carr late in the season last year around week 17, week 18, and you saw Derek Carr's production actually increase after the meeting with Jon Gruden. But when it comes down to it, there are a lot of obvious reasons as to why Jon Gruden is linked to the New Orleans Saints. This being the biggest one of all. Derek Carr, the current quarterback one in New Orleans, his best seasons as a quarterback came under Gruden whenever he was a Las Vegas Raider. And I do believe when it comes down to Derek Carr, his future, it is a little bit murky. We don't necessarily know whether or not the New Orleans Saints will have Derek Carr for the long term. But even if it only is for 1-2 seasons, I'm not sure Jon Gruden can navigate the rebuild. I don't know that Derek Carr is going to be here for an ever and ever amen. In my opinion, I believe that Jon Gruden, sure, it's a polarizing name. Sure, he kind of looks like he could be a Saints coach, according to some of the guys in the Chat Sports studio. But in my thoughts, I just think that Jon Gruden, it's not necessarily worth it, to be totally honest. Again, I just don't know if he can navigate the rebuild. I don't know if Gruden's ever going to be able to pick up a bad roster, find his quarterback, find his playmakers, build the defense, and get things from the ground up. Again, like I mentioned, Derek Carr will not be the quarterback forever. He is not going to be around in 3, 4, 5 years. At most, maybe 1 to 2 more years. But in my personal opinion, I think the New Orleans Saints are better off going a different route. Jon Gruden, he's a funny guy with his Gruden Loves Football posts. He's been doing a lot of stuff with Barstool and all that kind of stuff. So, he has to want to come back. If teams are doing the research and try in order to get him back into the NFL, okay, that's one thing. But he has to want to return as well. So we'll have to see what happens. I don't think the New Orleans Saints are going to hire Jon Gruden. I'm personally in the camp of I'd rather not deal with all of the extra nonsense and all that kind of stuff. And I'm also in the camp of I'd rather not deal with all the extracurriculars and all the extra things that come with Jon Gruden, with the legal problems and all that kind of stuff. I think that there's a lot of distractions that can come with Jon Gruden. And to be totally honest, it's just for me one of those things I just don't want to deal with it. The Saints have a lot of problems to figure out already. I don't want them to add on unnecessarily problems that they don't have to bring in. If you don't bring in Jon Gruden, you don't deal with all the nonsense. If you don't hire Jon Gruden, you don't have to worry about the legal issues. I'm just not really dealing with it. I'm not really interested in messing around with it. I think that the New Orleans Saints should go a different route for head coach and actually have a pretty interesting name that I'm going to tell you about here in a moment. But really quick, I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel. We're going to be giving you guys updates around the head coaching search all offseason long. In my personal opinion, I've said it before and I'll say it again. This might be the most important offseason in New Orleans Saints franchise history. At the bare minimum, it is the most important offseason in franchise history in the last 20 years. So lock us in, subscribe today, help us reach that 40,000 subscriber milestone. That way you never miss out on anything. And really quick, I got to give a big-time shout-out to PrizePicks, today's presenting sponsor. If you haven't already, I highly encourage you to download PrizePicks today. And you can get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup with PrizePicks. And it's playoff time, which means it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last few weeks of football action with PrizePicks, the best place to win cash while watching the playoffs. And like I mentioned, you can now get $50 instantly when you play $5 with code CLNS. And fun fact, PrizePicks also has the ability to win up to 1,000 times your money. So if you want to go throw some cheddar down on college football, on the professional football players, anything like that, I highly encourage you to check out PrizePicks. All sorts of great deals, all sorts of great lineups for the Boise State, Penn State game. I'm going with Ashton Genties more on the rushing yards, Harrison Wallace more on the receiving yards, and Maddox Madsen. I'm going to go with the less on the passing yards. I think Penn State's defense has been absolutely stellar this year. So that's my lineup. If you want to fade my picks, you want to tail the picks, I don't really care. Just make sure you do it with PrizePicks. Shout out to PrizePicks. Thank you for sponsoring today's video. You can get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup when you use code CLNS. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Shout out to PrizePicks. Run your game. All right, head coach topic number 2. You saw it on the thumbnail. You knew we were going to discuss Mike Vrabel. And really interesting information, he's actually eligible to start interviewing for head coaching jobs across the National Football League because his consulting agreement with the Cleveland Browns has expired. It actually expired yesterday. So that means the New Orleans Saints can bring him in for an interview as soon as they really want to, as soon as the season's done, to be totally honest. And for me, I think that Mike Vrabel would be an excellent addition. I think that he would be a phenomenal hire for the New Orleans Saints. And to be totally honest, he is a guy that I think would be a really, really good fit for the New Orleans Saints. And I'm not the only one talking about this idea. Peter Schrager, Diana Rossini, Adam Schefter, just to name a few, and then a plethora of other NFL media members have linked Mike Vrabel to the New Orleans Saints, and they've been saying that they expect him to, the Saints to be interested in Mike Vrabel. And for Vrabel specifically, this is a guy who has found success upon success upon success, and he has been a stellar head coach, especially when he was the head coach of the Tennessee Titans in that tenure. He had a 54-45 overall record as the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. Took that team to the AFC Championship game where they lost to the inevitable and the eventual Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. And on top of that, he was also the coach of the year back in 2021. I think that this guy would be an excellent hire. The Titans moved on from him because they wanted to go with the more cohesive, team building mentality. They were changing GMs, a lot of stuff, and a lot of changes were happening. So the head coach was also getting changed as well. Vrabel, he is a highly coveted name. The fact that he didn't get a head coaching job last year is shocking to me, but he is going to be one of the most popular names across league circles and across the NFL rumors mill as he continues to go through, or as we continue to go through the hiring process, and as we continue to start the hiring process. And like I mentioned, Mike Vrabel, he's going to be a popular name. And I believe it's because he's a culture builder. And I believe because he is a guy who comes in, he demands respect, he earns respect, he gives respect. He is a guy that I think would be a perfect fit for exactly what the New Orleans Saints need. A culture builder in an organization that lacks a culture. That's exactly the issue right now with the New Orleans Saints. If you can bring Mike Vrabel in, get this man a king cake, get this man some crawfish, get this man some crawfish etouffee, some jambalaya, some gumbo. I don't care what we have to do. Go fry up a fresh batch of boudin balls and get Mike Vrabel to be the next head coach for the New Orleans Saints, because I think that it would be a really, really good hire. But in terms of teams to keep an eye out for, I think that there's a lot of coaches. There are a lot of teams that are looking for a head coach, and a lot of coaches specifically are going to be good fits. But these 5 specifically, I think, would be excellent for Mike Vrabel. Chicago Bears, New Orleans Saints, New York Jets, Las Vegas Raiders. Peter Schrager actually mentioned these 4 names as destinations for Mike Vrabel. But then the New England Patriots. He was a player there for some time. He has experience out in New England. And to be honest, I wouldn't be shocked if the New England Patriots, decided to move on from Gerard Mayo and decided to bring back Mike Vrabel, a guy who was a successful player as well as a coach in New England. Like, he's under the Belichick tree. It feels like it checks all the boxes for New England. But, when it comes down to it, there's a lot of decisions to be made at the head coaching position. Whether the Saints want to go Aaron Glenn, whether the Saints want to go Ben Johnson, whether they want to go Joe Brady. The Saints have to find a guy that's going to build an identity. They have to find a guy that's going to build a culture. They have to find a guy that's going to create a team. This organization has gone down the shitter ever since Dennis Allen took over, and somebody needs to course correct. I think Mike Vrabel is an excellent option to do that. I think he would be a phenomenal person to be the next head coach. And to be totally honest, if the Saints don't even at least bring him in for an interview, they are doing a massive, massive disservice to themselves. So really quick reminder to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and be sure to let me know your thoughts on this question. How interested are you in Mike Vrabel being the New Orleans Saints head coach? Scale it for me 1 to 10. 1 meaning you're not interested at all. You think that he would be a terrible hire. 100. Did I say 1 to 10? Did I say 1 to 10? I think I said 1 to 10. I don't know. 1 to 100. 1, you're not interested. 100, you are dead set on Mike Vrabel being the next head coach. I'm curious what you guys think. I'll be interacting with y'all. And Happy New Year, by the way. Make sure you take an Uber. Don't drink and drive. Call a friend. Call your mom or dad. Call an Uber. Or shoot, call me and I'll come pick you up. Y'all have a wonderful evening. Stay safe. Happy New Year. Y'all stay golden. We will see you in 2025.